Hey everyone, so second video today. I wanted to make this video because I've gotten a couple of messages on YouTube and Facebook about this topic, so I just wanted to address it real quick. It's I think I might have addressed it before, but maybe not completely to the depth of some of the questions that I'm getting. So this is about how I came to identify as a man. That's the gist of the question. There's a lot more nuanced questions in there, so I'll reference them as I'm going through. But so how did I come to identify as a man? The short answer to that question really is I'm not really sure. There's a whole host of things that have happened throughout my life, and feelings that I've had and thoughts that I've had that probably all contributed in their own ways. But I don't know that there's any one thing that helped me along. I mean, there's that, usual answer of I always felt a little different, which is true. But a lot of us feel a little bit different in all kinds of different ways. And how did I figure out that this is what was one of the things that made me feel a bit different? I mean, this is my narrative. Obviously, I just want to also say that, and my narrative is not representative of anything. It's just representative of my story. So, I think growing up, the whole girl thing never quite fit right. And I really wasn't sure if it was because I just didn't like how girl was being imposed on me, or that girl was being imposed on me, period. And I think it's possible that it was a little bit of both. I think as soon as I was exposed to this idea of feminism and equity and equal rights and all that kind of stuff, I've been a feminist, or at least a pro-feminist. And so for me, girls, and I'm talking about girls in particular as in younger women, being told to be certain, to dress in certain ways and act in certain ways, and being conditioned into womanhood from a very young age based on whatever their societies and communities' ideas of girlhood and womanhood were and are, never quite felt right for me. It didn't make sense in through this lens of feminism, that was still okay, or that was ever okay. So I definitely fought against that in my own way, kind of, telling people off if they told me not to whistle, because whistling is something that girls don't do, which is something that I got told a lot. Or to take my hands out of my pockets, because girls don't put their hands in their pockets. So, these were the things that kind of, at that age, those were things that were important to me, that I guess, protested against in my own little 6 and 7-year-old ways. And kind of said, no, I'm a girl and I'm going to put my hands in my pocket. I'm a girl and I'm going to whistle, and that's fine. And I said those things with full conviction and belief that that's how I felt. And at the same time, the word girl, always felt still a little, I know that growing up, the few dreams that I would recall most vividly, I have a hard time remembering dreams, but there were ones that I just that stuck with me. And whenever I guess the camera of the dream zoomed in on me, or I was able to see myself in the dream, I felt like a male persona in those dreams. I guess my subconscious was coming forth to me in a masculine way. Some of the questions being posed were also around male genitalia, of did you know that you identified as a man because you wanted male genitalia, or felt like you should have male genitalia. And no, I don't really think so. There's been times in my life where I felt like, yeah, there seems to be something that I would like to have, and then other times it really doesn't faze me that I don't have a penis. It's not that big a deal. But it never really came into play when it came to thinking of myself as a man. And even in these dreams that I mentioned, I didn't know that I had a male persona because I saw a penis. I was never without clothes on, at least, hips down. I always had pants or shorts or something on. So I don't know if in my dreams I had a penis, which I realize now that's been problematic for me to equate male genitalia with penis. Again, socially constructed ways that we think of bodies that stay with us. But anyway, just wanted to say that now that I realize that. But yeah, that wasn't the case. Did I always feel like a guy, or did I think that I was a queer woman first? Well, I went through seeing myself as a boy at a younger age, and when I was really, really young, and people were, starting to put, folks in girl and boy boxes, and girls stand in line here, boys stand in line here. I always kind of wanted to go and stand in the boys' line, and when in gym the boys played soccer and the girls played volleyball, I wanted to go play soccer. And not just because I wanted to go play soccer, but I wanted to play with the other boys. That connection felt right to me, and the connection with the girls in my classes just didn't feel right. It felt contrived and forced upon. So it wasn't just about what sport was being played or what the activities were. It was just about who I wanted to connect with and who I felt like I had things in common with that I couldn't talk about. But then, as all those social constructions and the community's way of basically telling you what's right and wrong seep through, I kind of started letting go of that and just saw myself as a girl who's different. And started, as I started getting closer to puberty and, hormones and all that kind of stuff at that age, the focus really went towards sexuality. As my mom started having the birds and bees conversation with me, and I started to think about boys and that kind of stuff. I didn't know that boys always felt like what I wanted, but I didn't know that I was okay wanting girls either. Obviously, I'm realizing this, this stage of my life, I was still thinking of gender in a very, very binary way. I didn't think that there were other options. So I would have feelings towards my friends, but I just always thought it was what friends felt for each other. When the girls would talk about, ooh, I have a crush on this guy and a crush on that guy, I'd say I have a crush on this guy or that guy, and sometimes it was just to play along and have something to say instead of sit there quietly. And other times I think it was really about which guy I wanted to be like, and which guy I wanted to be friends with, and play with, and all that kind of stuff. Those were the names I would pick. So I started really looking into sexuality, and once I got into college and got a little bit of distance from family and that stuff, I felt a little safer vocalizing my feelings towards women, that I found them attractive and wanted to see what it felt like to kiss one and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, at that point in my life, when again I hadn't restarted looking at gender, I thought of myself as a queer woman, bisexual woman was an identity I held at, for a while. Lesbian was an identity I held for a while, and queer was definitely one that felt better. Felt like it wasn't as limiting as the other two for me. And in a lot of ways, I still identify as queer, but I'll talk about that later. So, yeah, that was what was going on for me, and then I think as I started to identify as lesbian and queer in particular, I started getting more involved on campus and getting involved in all kinds of social justice activisty things, whether it was around racial identity or it was sexual identity or what have you. And in particular, in getting involved with LGBT stuff on campus, I didn't get much exposure to the T part of that equation and was really, really curious and wanted to learn more. And there were some older trans women in the community where I went to school who would come and do programs sometimes on campus. I didn't know any trans folk that went to Michigan State or even worked there. I just knew that there were these trans women around East Lansing and Lansing that sometimes would come and do programs for us. And it was in one of those programs where the focus was more turned towards other folks about how to be allies to trans folk, that I finally started asking myself those important questions. Until then, all the programs were about what are trans people and folks sharing some of their stories and some of their struggles, but not about the other people in the room. So the spotlight was never being shone on us. So the first time I got a chance with that spotlight being shone on me, I really had to ask myself who I saw myself as in terms of my gender. What type of a female was I really? Was I just a queer woman and different from other women, and that was it, or was there more to that? I didn't necessarily see myself as a very masculine woman. I definitely wasn't a feminine woman, but I wasn't straight up butch either. I kind of, I guess, lived in between that masculine feminine spectrum, and still do in a lot of ways. But once I got a chance to finally start questioning those things, slowly, all those times in my childhood that I had stronger convictions about my boyhood and my maleness started resurfacing, and I started to really remember how I felt about connection with the boys in the class versus connection with the girls in the class and all that stuff. And started asking myself about how much my sexuality played a part in that or not. At this point in my life, I don't necessarily see those having huge connections. Definitely some overlap, but at that point, it was those questions were very entrenched in each other, and I started to question my gender. And at that point, especially because I was very involved as a queer activist, the term genderqueer came into my vocabulary, and I found it to be a very attractive space to be in. It really resonated with me, especially politically, to see myself as genderqueer and identify as genderqueer. And it was a space that allowed me to question things for myself, and give me the time and space to do that, versus just jump onto whatever other identity was going to be forthcoming. So, and it felt very real at the time. It wasn't something that I was consciously saying, I'm going to be in this genderqueer space for now until I figure myself out. I felt genderqueer. That's what I felt like. Because again, like, lesbian had stopped fitting for a while at that point, and genderqueer was definitely that question mark space I wanted to be in. I always felt very comfortable in ambivalence and uncertainty. So it felt good. It felt safe. And unknown to me, it gave me that space to really look at my maleness and get comfortable with that. I think I'd started unconsciously developing a discomfort with my maleness because of getting exposure to the concepts of male privilege. And I think at some level, I didn't want to have male privilege. As a feminist and someone that was involved in gender rights and that kind of stuff, I wanted to dismantle those the institutions and privileges associated with dominant identities, and I definitely didn't want to identify with dominant identity. So I resisted it for a really, really long time for all the wrong reasons. But eventually came to realize that that was a lot more self-serving than anything. And as I became more comfortable with my maleness, I saw that I could inhabit all kinds of male spaces. That I had, in essence, put men into this gender box that they couldn't break out of. So I didn't want to be in that box, so therefore I wasn't a man. And as I met men who didn't live in that box and who expressed their maleness differently, and who challenged other men, that's when I kind of started to feel like, okay, I can have community here. And that definitely, I think especially solidified for me when I worked at Vermont, and there was intentional space where I could connect with other men of color in particular, when my racial and gender identities could really, really exist in the same space. And those intersections could really be talked about in an intentional way, that I felt like I can be here and still be pro-feminist and feminist, and still work to dismantle whatever I feel like I need to be dismantling, and play whatever part I need to be playing as a man. So I guess that's been a really, really long story of my narrative, and I think I answered most of the questions that I've gotten. I'm just kind of scanning through the stuff, but I think in telling my story, again, I want to say it is my story, and it's my narrative, so I can't say how much of this relates to other trans guys' experiences or not. And so in answering questions like, do most female to males identify as male because they just feel like a guy through and through, or because they want to experience what it is like to have male genitalia, or both? I can't answer that. How people see their genders and how people see their bodies is very, very individual. While yes, it's often in community and in connection with the other people in our lives and the societies and communities we live in. How it gets internalized and the meaning making is definitely very individual. I've learned throughout my life from all the people that I've interacted with and worked with and lived with and studied with and whatever, across the gender spectrums and across all the other identity spectrums, that have, I think, in little ways given me clues to myself. But at the end of the day, that filter came just through me, and I needed to, I guess, cipher for myself, how much of that was about me, and how much was just, things I connected with and resonated with, but wasn't necessarily about me. So that's a long-winded way of saying this is my story, and it's not representative of other people. Yeah, so I think for other folks, it's a lot more black and white than it was for me, and there are other folks that the grays and then the in-betweens are a lot more prevalent than it was for me. So I guess I kind of inhabit an in-between space where being male was not a through and through identity and always crystal clear to me. but it was, it is an identity that I've come to, and does feel right. And in particular, in conjunction with transness. So being transmale is, I think, a lot more of an identity that feels right for me than just plain old male, because my history is hugely important to me, and I value not just the lessons learned, but also the experiences had. I think that still impact me today, and still inform my transmaleness and my maleness. But then I think there's folks that whether they're bigendered or genderqueer or genderless or what have you, that those spaces are not just a temporary space to be, or a sometimes space to be. That is much more. I guess concrete would be the wrong word to say, but much more real, and a much more long-term space to exist, and a comfortable space to exist. And whereas for me it was a temporary space to be. Anyway, I'm rambling now, and I think I got to most of the questions. But to answer one tiny more, if I think that wanting to have male genitalia is normal, if that's what you feel like, then yes, it is normal. The feelings we have are normal. They're real. What we do with those feelings, and the actions we take or not take, those are the things that we are deciding and being more intentional or conscious of. But the feelings are just there, and whether we acknowledge them or not. So yeah, it's normal. It's for you to decide what it means, though, and what you want to do about it, if anything. Right, that's it. That's my long ass video. Take care.